or care or kindness or inspiration, you begin to activate the immune system, and the immune system begins to create order where there is once disorder. It begins to release all kinds of different chemicals that begin to regenerate and restore the body. It turns out that those chemicals stay active for the remainder of the day with just 10 minutes of just an elevated emotion. So we started every single meditation in the advanced workshop by creating elevated emotional states and being able to sustain them. And we measured it with a HRV monitor. We measured people's hearts while they were doing it. And interestingly enough, the majority of those people were able to create that kind of heart coherence that began to create a strong electromagnetic field, that began to produce a strong chemical change, a strong physiological change, and now their inner environment was more resistant or more orderly than anything in their external environment. So then, if you do that enough times, every single day, then you should no longer be subjected to those opportunistic bacteria, because they're called opportunistic bacteria because they're waiting for an opportunity for your immune system to be compromised. And it's no wonder that a group of people that are all working in a corporation or a department in some company all get sick at the same time. It's not the bugs that's creating the disease. It's their immune system is compromised because they're all stressed at the same time that allows the bacteria to begin to proliferate within them. So giving people the science and understanding of how the placebo works, is it possible then to teach it? And the placebo is based on three things. Conditioning. You give someone a pill, they notice a change in their internal state. You give them a pill again, it takes away their pain. You give them a pill again, it takes their pain away. You give them the pill, but this time it's an inert substance that looks just like the other pill. By conditioning, their body begins to make the same chemicals. The second thing in the placebo is called expectation. You begin to expect something to occur. The moment you select that potential, that possible known in your future, your body begins to physiologically change in preparation for the event. And if 40 to 50% of people that are diagnosed with cancer, that are told that they're going to get nauseous on their first chemotherapy treatment, get nauseous on their drive to their first chemotherapy treatment, they're expecting that outcome. Their brain and body are in that future reality. But instead of doing it that way, is it possible that 40 or 50% of the people can get well on their drive to work in anticipation of something wonderful happening? And changing that, using the same principle but changing the biology to produce an effect, begins to cause some very significant changes. Because you can say to a person in a placebo study, we're going to give you a drug, and if the doctor's enthusiastic, it works better, that's going to take away your pain. And they're all enthusiastic, and the person begins to anticipate their pain going away. They begin to make their own morphine. And of course, they'd have no reaction to the stimulus that creates the pain. The third thing is assigning meaning to something. So if you say, hey, here's the receptors on the end of your nerve cells, and serotonin has to be picked up in the synaptic space, and this chemical keeps serotonin there so it'll remove depression, and you're looking at the charts and you're assigning meaning to why you're taking this pill, you'll produce a better result. But if you teach people then how to condition their body to a new mind, that's the placebo. If you teach them how to, instead of select the worst thing that could happen in their life, select the most amazing thing that could happen in their life and emotionally embrace it, just like they create anxiety, they could create wellness or healing or health. And if you can assign meaning to what they're doing and teach them why we're using science as the contemporary model to explain and demystify it, it's not enough for them to just intellectually understand it. They have to turn to someone next to them. They have to be able to speak it. They have to be able to say it. So in our workshops, they learn information and then they interact with each other, and I ask them to explain it. If they can explain it, it's wired in their brain. Now we're installing the hardware, so when it comes time to the instruction, and we set up the conditions in the environment for them to practice, if they can get their behaviors to match their intentions by combining those three things, they should have some type of transformation. And we've measured the transformation over and over again, and it's beginning to become a new scientific law. And I really think that we shouldn't wait for science to give us permission to do the uncommon. I think we should go out and do the uncommon and do it repeatedly, and then have science come and study us and begin to change their laws. And yeah, this is not normal, and this isn't natural, but we're talking about supernatural here. We're talking about breaking outside of the conventional model. And it's going to take a certain amount of courage to begin to say, okay, I've been given this diagnosis. The doctor told me I had 6 months to live and to get my affairs in order. And I can't tell you how many people in our work were given the voodoo curse that you had 6 months or 3 months to live, to get your papers in order, your affairs in order, and you won't live. And those people didn't accept, believe, and surrender to those thoughts without any analysis to program their autonomic nervous system into that destiny. They said, wait a second, okay, I think I can make a change here. And some of them either don't have the disease or they're living 2 years later and they're still making their way. And I think that it's important for people to take a certain amount of their power back. And here's the reason why. We're in an age of information. And in an age of information, ignorance is a choice. 25, 30 years ago, you went to the doctor and she told you you had a certain condition. And she said, this is the procedure or the surgery that you're going to need. And most people just signed on the dotted line and just said, okay, I'll get the procedure. Fast forward to today. Someone's given a diagnosis. The doctor tells them what their treatment options are. And they go home and they get on their internet and they begin to research that condition for hours, looking at conventional and non-conventional treatments and modalities. And some people know more about ways to treat this than some physicians. And they walk back into the doctor's office and they say, hey, I have this idea. I want to try this therapy, or I want to try this. And the doctor either says, I don't know anything about that, or I don't think that works. And people are now looking at their doctors and saying, time to find a new doctor. I want to find somebody that's going to support me in the type of lifestyle I want to live and see if I can make the change. Now, there's a caveat to this. And we tell all of our students that are making changes, you have to measure. In other words, if you are going to go on this journey, this is not about denial. This is about information, which means if your values are high or your scans show this, let's go for 3 months and let's see what you're able to do. At the end of 3 months, we measure. If it's staying the same or getting better, we keep going and we may add 1 or 2 other things. If you're getting worse, then you have to take a little bit more of a radical procedure to help you make that specific type of change. So this isn't about negligence. This isn't about burying the information. This is about really seeing if you can produce some type of effect. And measuring then lets you know, because it's feedback. And it's the feedback over time that lets us know that what we're doing is beginning to produce changes, and we keep doing it so the person begins to change fundamentally.
Just to expand on that a little bit, you said that a concern of yours is that we live in a world where scientific research is commingled with self-interests and often influenced by profits. Can you just touch on why some people shouldn't accept the woman in the white coat's diagnosis, because maybe they don't have all the information, or their education comes from a pharmaceutical company? Or
Well, I have nothing against pharmaceutical companies. I have nothing against drugs, because they've done amazing jobs in helping people restore their health because they move back into chemical balance. The problem that I have is that I'm not certain that we're given the truth about how powerful we really are, because the moment that cat is out of the bag, you sell less products and you sell less drugs. I question, number one, the efficacy of all drugs. I question what research papers are being published and which ones that don't produce substantial evidence that the drug works never ever makes it into the scientific pool. And so if there's 38 particular papers that were written on a certain drug, you may only find maybe 19 or 18 of those actually published, and the other ones that don't show any market results never get published. So I think there's a transparency that's beginning to happen because people can become informed and they can find out for themselves. We can only accept, believe, and surrender to thoughts that are equal to our emotional state. And we will not accept, believe, and surrender to any thoughts that are not equal to your emotional state. So when a person shows up in a doctor's office and they're given the diagnosis of rheumatoid arthritis or MS or cancer or diabetes, once they hear that diagnosis, the common emotions they experience is either fear or sadness or pain. So the moment they feel fear, the moment they feel sadness from the diagnosis, from that experience, they can think positively all they want. They can say, I'm going to overcome this condition. But if they are feeling fear, that thought never makes it past the brainstem into the body because it's not in alignment with the body's emotional state. You get that person to change their emotional state and get them into a state of gratitude. Why gratitude? Well, we normally give thanks when we get something. But if you're giving thanks in a state of gratitude, your body is believing it's receiving something because the emotional signature of gratitude means it's already happened. So when a person is beginning to experience gratitude and they're not waiting for their healing, they're feeling gratitude because they can cultivate that emotional state. They're more prone to accept, believe, and surrender to the thoughts equal to that emotional state, and they begin to program their autonomic nervous system into a different destiny. Now, I've run a very busy integrated health clinic for the last 30 years, and we treat a lot of chronic conditions in my clinic. I was in there yesterday, and it's very busy. And people come to us because we are interested in creating a lifestyle change. Less than 5% of the people on the planet are born with genetic conditions. The other 95%, their diseases are created from lifestyle and behaviors and choices. So the medical model works really great for acute conditions. You know, like if you break your arm or you have appendicitis, it's a good idea to seek emergency medical care. But when it comes to chronic conditions that require a lifestyle change, a lot of times it's not enough just to take a chemical, because the person may have some old emotional scars, that person may be in a bad situation in their life, there could be their exposure to certain chemicals or choices that they're making that are actually continuously weakening the body's state. So here's the formula that we use for people that are interested in making significant changes. You have 3 types of stress: physical, chemical, and emotional, which means you have 3 types of balance: physical, chemical, and emotional. So then what are the things that we do to create physical balance in our body? It could be anything from yoga to aerobic exercise to acupuncture to chiropractic to massage, anything that's physical that helps your body get back into homeostasis. What are the chemical things that you can do? All right, well, if your immune system is beat up because of the hormones of stress, and next to orgasm and the stress response, digestion takes quite a bit of energy, well, maybe just eat foods that are going to be less difficult to break down so you can use more energy for growth and repair. So you start eliminating certain foods that are going to knock your brain and body out of balance. You have more energy going for growth and repair, and you get the person more chemically balanced, and you use enzymes, or they modify their diets, or they eat less, or they eliminate certain foods. They may or may not take a pharmaceutical. They may take extra nutraceuticals. That helps create chemical balance in their body. And then what about emotional balance, right? Meditation is, for us, the greatest model that we use, but we also use a lot of modalities that have to do with energy psychology for certain people that we treat. And when we get 2 out of those 3 in order, the third one typically always comes around. You get someone more physically balanced and more chemically balanced, they're going to be more emotionally balanced. You get someone more emotionally balanced and more chemically balanced, they're going to be more physically balanced. You get someone more physically balanced, more emotionally balanced, they're going to be more chemically balanced. It's the way it is. So you get 2 out of those 3 in order. Over time, the third one begins to come around. And so that's a kind of a solid model when it comes to the practice of maintaining a certain level of health and helping people to get from one station to another.
I love the concept of infinite possibilities. Can you talk about how a doctor's opinion is just one possibility in a field of infinite possibilities?
When people get a diagnosis, the diagnosis and the prognosis is based on normal or natural. So when you look at people that are at the whim of the conditioning of how they should live their life. The moment they get that diagnosis and they're subjected to the same treatments, then the majority of people respond in the same way because they're giving their power away to something outside of them. But a diagnosis and a prognosis is one potential in the infinite field of possibilities. And so this is a very sensitive subject when it comes to ethics, because I think that doctors are now becoming more compassionate with patients and understanding that they want to give them hope and they want to support them in their health goals. It's important for people to understand when they're given a diagnosis that if they fall prey to the prognosis without actually considering that there's other options, without actually realizing that they may have to do something differently, that they may have to make new choices, that they are going to have to get beyond certain emotions and overcome their limited thinking. If they can understand that if they're able to do that, more possibilities open up as a result of their own personal changes, that's when you start to see all kinds of magical things start to appear in the person's life. Their life gets longer. Their pain goes away. The quality of their life improves. You start seeing biological, neurological, chemical, hormonal changes beginning to take place. So, again, education is so important for people to understand that in the spectrum of the quantum world, there are infinite possibilities that exist in the present moment. So if you have the ability to practice being present and truly not thinking about what could happen in your future or what's happened in your past, but truly practice every single day in that process, that inward journey of getting present, if you keep doing that, if there is no predictable future and there is no familiar past and you're in the present moment, there should be possibilities that you haven't considered before. The beauty behind all of that means that the moment you are open to possibility and you're no longer focusing on knowns or familiars in your life, that's the moment you start experiencing those synchronicities, those serendipities, those coincidences that are happening all around you because you're no longer investing your energy in a predictable future or a familiar past. And I think that you can teach that. And I think when people really start centering themselves and practicing that, they should expect the unexpected in their life. They should expect unknown events to begin to occur, possibilities that they haven't thought of. Because if they thought of them, they would have done them and it would have been a known. But so we have to stretch out into that world of possibilities, which is the unknown. And I'm interested in that supernatural process. I believe in human potential, and I've witnessed transformation and healings enough times to say that anybody can do it if they're given the proper instruction.
So what is your one takeaway message?
I'm going to assume that the expression of this divine intelligence within us is the expression of life, which is equal to the health of the body. And that I think when we take time out of our busy lives to invest in ourselves, to become a work in progress, to begin to decide what thoughts we no longer want to think, what behaviors we'd like to change, what emotions we want to transform, and every single day make an effort to remove the blocks and the masks, the facades that stop the flow of the divine in us. When we begin to do that kind of work, that intelligence begins to move through us, and that's when we become more like it. We become more willful. It has an amazing will. We become more mindful. It has an infinite mind. We become more conscious. It's a consciousness. We become more loving. It's a loving intelligence. We become more giving. It's a giver of life. I think its nature begins to become our nature. Its mind begins to become our mind. And the side effect of that, I think, was we move from this selfish state to this selfless state. And transformation does something really amazing. When you free yourself from the chains of those emotions that keep you anchored in the past, and you go from particle to wave, from matter to energy, and you begin to liberate energy. And your heart starts to open, and you feel one or connected to something greater. There's only one thing you want to do when you feel this way, and that is you want to give. You say, I feel so amazing. I want you to feel the way I feel. And so the natural tendency is to give something away because you feel so whole in that moment that it's impossible to want. Now, why would you want when you're whole? Now, that to me is the natural state of being. Disease can exist in that state of holism. And I think that it's reachable in our lives, and I think that people can reach those elegant states, and it can begin to become more constant. So how do we become supernatural, then, is the question. And that is, we have to start doing what feels unnatural. In the beginning, of course, change is going to be uncomfortable. It's going to feel unfamiliar. There's going to be some uncertainty. You can't predict when you step into the unknown what that's like. And most people rush back to their familiar feelings and familiar behaviors, and they say, this feels right. No, it feels familiar. Becoming comfortable in that unknown, where the best way to predict your future is to create it. And be able to create from that place of the unknown begins to produce supernatural effects in our lives. So then, giving when everybody else is in lack is supernatural. Demonstrating compassion when everybody's angry and judgmental is supernatural. Showing signs of love and strength and courage when everybody else is in fear. I think if we keep doing what feels unnatural, sooner or later we'll begin to become supernatural. And this is a time in history right now where people are looking for answers, and they secretly believe in themselves. And I think that belief in ourselves and belief in the infinite possibilities makes life really exciting. So when our will matches that intelligence within us as well, when our mind matches its mind, and when our love for life matches its love for life, I think it always answers the call.